So now I'm in my judicial committee meeting, and they're asking me questions, and one of the guys, he's a young guy, he's a young kid. Well, I won't say he was a young kid. He was probably, I think I was around 35 at the time. I'm 47 now. I was about 35, and this guy was, I think he was younger than me, and this is a guy that had never touched a woman. Now, because I didn't really have, I've always just been me, had a big mouth, I don't have no problem talking to the women. I was a DJ, I liked to party, and I don't know if I was ever a good witness. I mean, maybe I was, but the thing about me is I was always me. I was always sunny. If I wanted to say something, I said it. If I wanted to dance with somebody, I asked them to dance. If I wanted to flirt with somebody, I flirted with them, right? But this guy, his name was June. We were out in service one time, obviously before my judicial committee meeting, and he was asking me for advice, about women. He was asking me for advice about what he should do, how to talk to girls, and this and that. And I asked him, I said, well, how many women have you ever dated? And he said, none. I've never dated anybody. This is a guy who was in his late 20s or early 30s. And interestingly, I'll tell you a bit more about this guy's history. He was a person who, well, maybe I should view this as hearsay, because I didn't hear this I don't think I heard this from his mouth. I heard this from someone else. That this guy, when he was in high school, his parents would come up to his high school and they would pick him up and they would take him to McDonald's for lunch, so that he wouldn't have to have any interaction on a social level with any of his classmates, right? So his parents would come to school, pick him up, and take him to McDonald's. Can you imagine what kind of square goes out to the front of the of campus? His parents pick him up, take him to McDonald's, and bring him back home afterwards, so that he doesn't have to have any interaction with his classmates, right? So this is the kind of guy that we're dealing with. And again, maybe view that as hearsay. I didn't hear that from his mouth. It's something that I heard. I heard it from another witness, so probably it was true. This guy never touched a woman. So I'm in this judicial committee meeting, and they're asking me all these questions, and I don't have no problem, I told them the truth. They're gonna ask me the questions. I'm gonna answer them truthfully. I had been at a party, and like a quote unquote worldly party, and I had started up with some chick that was at the party. We kind of went off into the back room and we were making out, right? And so, as I said, I was pretty close to being disfellowshipped anyways. So, we made out in the bathroom, and this person, she starts taking off her clothes, right? And so I'm telling June and I'm telling the rest of these elders what happened, and so I tell June, that yeah, we went into the bathroom and we started making out, and I said, kind of one thing led to another, and she took off her clothes, so she got naked in front of me, and June, he says to me, he says, she took off her clothes, and I said, yeah. And do you know what this guy did? Remember I talked to you guys about tells. He asked me, I'll say it again. He asked me, he said, she took off her clothes? And I was like, yeah. This guy, he's sitting down in one of the chairs. This freaking jerk crosses his legs. He had to cross his legs because it was obvious that he was getting a hard on. And it's kind of like, when you're sitting in a chair, you're going to cross your legs you're going to cross your legs maybe, but that's something that you do to kind of get more comfortable. It's like, let me just show you. He's asking, we're all sitting down, and he's sitting down, and I remember he had his hands up like this, and he was, how they're giving me instruction and everything. And I remember that he had his hands up, and he says, she took off her clothes? I said, yeah. And he goes, that was a tell of epic proportions, and I never forgot that, and I never will. it was clear to me with 100% clarity that this guy was getting a hard on because I was talking to him about some woman that was standing naked in front of me. Now you got to ask yourself just how freaking hard up a person has to be where we're sitting in a, in this meeting discussing my future, and as solemn as a setting as a judicial committee meeting, and this guy is freaking getting a hard on just based on the fact that me telling him that some woman took her clothes off in front of me. See? This is the organization. This is how this organization functions, where you have grown men that behave like this. We're sitting in this meeting. They're asking me these invasive questions, and this guy is becoming sexually aroused because I'm telling him what I happen to do with some person that I was dealing with. Just imagine what goes on in those judicial committee meetings where they're sitting there with these sisters. It's an organization where these people are so sexually repressed that, and they are warned, and they talk about pornography all the time, and they're warning you about pornography, and they're warning you about masturbation from the platform. And I remember I was sitting in one of the meetings, and it was so quiet, when we were listening to this talk, because they're talking about, it's kind of like they're trying to talk about this stuff, but say it as delicately as they possibly can. Talking about giving a woman her womanly due, talking about how you have to take care because it might take a woman, a longer period of time to become satisfied than a man. And, you want to go to church to learn about paradise, to learn about don't steal, don't hurt people, be nice to everybody, don't rob trains, don't beat up your neighbors. You're sitting in this Jehovah's Witnesses Kingdom Hall, and they're talking to you about, I just can't, I can't do it anymore. I've been going for about 41 minutes, and I think you guys get where I'm coming from here, and so I just wanted to present that to you guys. Just think about these things. If you're somebody who's not a witness, think about the things that I've told you. I'm not making this stuff up. This is the Jehovah's Witnesses organization. They don't change. Think about that Pillowgate video. It's like they're getting even worse. I'll tell you guys one last thing that happened. When I was on my way out, out of the organization, I like to party, and this is going to speak to this interrogation that these elders do, that they still do, about what's going on with individual Jehovah's Witnesses. I remember me and a bunch of my friends, we went out to a club and we were dancing and everything, and the elders already had their eye on me, right? And so in one of my judicial committee meetings, I talked about how we had all went out to a club, and they were interrogating me because they wanted to know who else was there with me, right? And I refused to tell them. I don't have a lot of pride in myself. I don't have an ego, but that's one thing that I am prideful about. Those elders were interrogating me about who I was out with that night, and I refused to tell them. And they asked me repeatedly, and I refused to tell them. I just wouldn't tell them, right? And they didn't like that. So they already had it in for me. But one of my other friends, one of my hangout partners that was also out that night, she told me some years later that the elders had also interrogated her about what had happened that night when we were out at the club, right? And she told me that the elders were asking her specifically about me. And one of the questions that they had asked her was, did he go into the bathroom? Did Sonny go into the bathroom? That's the level of the interrogation that these guys are talking about. What the heck do they want to know about whether I went into the bathroom? What interest could they possibly, I don't know. Maybe I'm going to take some chick to the bathroom with me, or I just don't know. And she told me that. And it took her a lot of years, before we got in contact, because I left the organization before she did. But she felt like that was something that she needed to tell me, when we finally were able to communicate again, because she had left. She told me that those elders had interrogated her specifically about me, and they wanted to know, when we were out at the club, whether I had went into the bathroom. So this is that organization.